Here, Cinnabon raises to 75 from under the gun with Queen 6 suited. We're in the small blind with Ace 8 offsuit. Normally I'd fold this hand, but I make an adjustment knowing that I could be ahead of Cinnabon's range, and I call. Dr. J is in the third blind. In case you're wondering, he actually is a doctor. Dr. J calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop out of position. It comes 10-5-5 rainbow. Dr. J is the only one who connects, yet we all check. The turn is the Ace of Hearts giving us top pair. After checks through on the flop, I figure Cinnabon could also be holding an ace in his hand, or will potentially at least bet this card knowing that it's theoretically better for his range as the initial pre-flop raiser than it would be for anyone else. I check, Dr. J checks, Cinnabon bets 175 as a bluff. Despite not knowing exactly where we're at, there's no way that we're folding yet. I call, Dr. J isn't confident in his pair of 10s, and rightfully so, he makes a good fold. It's down to heads up, the river is the 9 of diamonds, I check, hoping that it'll check back. It doesn't. Cinnabon gathers chips to keep the pressure on and fires for almost a pot-sized bet of 525. He's either got a strong hand like top or 10s full, or he's bluffing. I don't like facing this decision. Still, I feel like we have close to the best hand that we'll have in this situation, so folding isn't a very appealing option.
525 from Cinnabon.
Brad
with Squadouche.
Or like 10s.
Brad, don't do it.
I'm an idiot.
He pays it off.
You got it.
Good call, Brad. Queen high.
Nice hand.
Take a seat, Brad.
Someone please call Paul Blart immediately. Cinnabon was just robbed for several $100s. I win the first hand of the stand-up game by making a difficult call. 20 hands later, I straddle to 50. Cinnabon, who is always smelling delicious in malls, raises to 175 in the cutoff with 4 deuce suited. Dylan has 7-6 diamonds in the third blind. He calls for 150 more. It's 125 for us to call. I'm on the fence about it with 10-9 offsuit. We're closing the action against a known bluffer, plus we're getting a good price. I call to see the flop. 3 of us are in the mix. The flop comes Jack 9-5 with 2 diamonds and a club. Surprisingly, 4 deuce suited isn't doing all that well on this board. Dylan, on the other hand, smashes it with his flush draw straight draw combo. We've got middle pair and a backdoor straight draw. It's checked to the initial pre-flop raiser. He didn't open with 4 deuce to check back flops. He fires for 150. It's just over 1/4 pot, very small sizing. Dylan is happy to stick around for that price. He calls. I'm getting almost 6-1. I don't see how I can fold at this juncture. I call to see what develops. The turn is the king of spades. It gives us a gutter, but since it's an overcard to the board, it again should be a better card for Cinnabon, the initial pre-flop raiser, and place where you used to love getting free samples, or maybe still do. Dylan checks. His hand is looking less and less appealing with only 1 card to come and 2 opponents who could potentially have better draws or even have 7-6 of diamonds drawing dead. I check with what's currently the best hand. Cinnabon knows that I know the king will often help him improve, and since he didn't get check raised on the flop, he continues with his story that he's got a big hand by betting 800. Dylan can't justify calling for that amount without even having a draw to the nuts. He folds. The situation for us is interesting. For one thing, we have Cinnabon's actual hand drawing stone dead. We've been downgraded to third pair, but we have a couple of key cards. Our 9 makes it way less likely that we're up against a strong hand like a set of 9s, or 2 pair hands like Jack 9 and King 9. Our 10 makes it way less likely that we're up against Queen 10 for the straight and King 10. What's even better is that we don't have any diamonds in our hand, increasing the probability that our opponent could have a diamond draw and may not be able to call a raise. I tend to have a solid image, which gives me more credibility when I make moves. I'm up against someone who's already shown this session that he's willing to bet with air. 10-9 isn't strong enough to call, but I'm not ready to give up.
Let's see what Brad does. He's got a gutter here and third pair. And Brad raises him. What a move. Probably recognizes Cinnabon is on tilt, trying to make a move. Really nice raise there from Brad, turning his third pair and got shot into a bluff. I really like that play there, Rick.
Cinnabon is open for business all day. Even though our third pair has the opponent drawing dead, this is one of my favorite plays that I've made, using my own intuition mixed with some lessons that I've gotten from Nick Petrangelo as part of the cash game course that's now out on Upswing called Smash Live Cash. Next we've got Jack 6 of spades on the button. The straddle is on for 50. I raised to 175. Guess who we're going to be battling with? If in your head you said Cinnabon, you're correct. You're probably getting a little hungry. He calls in the third blind for 150 more. Scotland can close the action with a call. He makes it with 7 deuce suited even though the 7 deuce game isn't on. Scotland's out there trying to make the stream interesting and is perhaps planning to make a move if he sees a good opportunity. We're going 3 ways to the flop in position. It comes 6-3 deuce with 2 spades. It's one of the best flops that we could get. We have top pair as well as a flush draw. Cinnabon checks. I was the pre-flop aggressor. Scotland isn't going to wait for me to bet though. He puts 200 out there with his bottom pair and backdoor draws. We're in the driver's seat given that there are a ton of cards that can help us improve, and we're in position. There's no real need to raise. I slightly under-rep our hand with a call so that we can keep in hands that we're crushing, like perhaps 7 deuce or 10-6 of diamonds. Cinnabon is having a tough day. It's like Orange Julius is having a sale right next door and is taking away all of Cinnabon's income. He puts in the check raise to 800 with his top pair that he thinks could be best. I don't blame him for making a play right now. The board is really only going to get worse for him if overcards come out, or actually even if undercards to his pair come out. He doesn't want to see spades either. Cinnabon has 4,345 left in his stack. Scotland gets out of there quickly. After under-repping my hand initially, I'm not going to be folding. There aren't any hands that I'm in terrible shape against except exactly 5-4 of spades. Even if I'm up against a set, I'll still have plenty of outs. Also, I can easily be ahead, like in this situation, or if Cinnabon has a flush draw himself. He could even have a worse flush draw like 7-5 of spades and be crushed. I don't want a card like the Queen of Diamonds coming out on the turn, then face a jam from Cinnabon and not be sure what to do. I get a count from the opponent. We're always going to have a relatively high amount of equity. We may as well get it in now with 2 cards to come. I back 3-bet jam for over 5,000 effective to put Cinnabon in the oven.
Brad said all in, and he's got the best hand. What a rip by him. Cinnabon's top pair shrivels up.
She's a super mom. Super mom, super employee, super housemaker.
He wasn't expecting that.
I'm glad to see the opponent in the tank. It means that I'm not up against a straight, set, or 2-pair hand. We're either up against 1 pair or a flush draw. Either way, we're going to be in decent shape. 10-6 of diamonds should be a snap fold because even if I have a hand like 7-6 or 7-5 of spades, top pair with a medium kicker will be a flip at best. Sometimes I'll have ace-6 through 10-6 of spades and we'll have a commanding lead like I do in this case. After over 2 minutes of tanking, the opponent finally folds. We take our hand and eat Cinnabon for breakfast with it. Sorry guys, but with a name like Cinnabon, these jokes are practically writing themselves. I'm just rolling with it. And spreading frosting on top. I like the opponent. I played with him plenty of times at the lodge. I show him that he made the right laydown. You can see on my face that I'm trying to get a read to see if he folded a hand that's better like pocket eights or a hand that's worse like a flush draw. He tells me that we couldn't have had a worse hand for him than the one that I showed. I ask him if he had 9-8 or something of spades. He says no, so then I guess 7-5 of spades. He eventually tells me that he had a 6 with a worse kicker and no spades. For some reason, the table wants to play the stand-up game for a 3rd time shortly after. It's down to us, and this episode's nemesis is the last 2 people standing. I never lost a stand-up game before, and don't intend to do it now, especially because the loser of this one has to pay each player $100 instead of $50 like earlier. The straddle's on. Downhill raises to 150 with King-Queen offsuit. Andrew's already sitting down, but he doesn't want to fold his King-5 suited. He puts in the 3-bet to 450. Now I've got a weird decision. I have a relatively strong hand that I don't want to let go of, particularly while Cinnabon still has cards because if Cinnabon wins the hand, I'll have to pay 7 players $100 each. I consider 4-betting. The issue for me is that Andrew has no real incentive to 3-bet light, given that he's already won his seat back and has 5 players to act behind him. The person that he 3-bet was second to act pre-flop, so Andrew's range should be really narrow and will often have ace-jack offsuit crushed. If I 4-bet, I might get 5-bet jammed on by Andrew and be smoked. I don't want that. I call to play in position. Stash is in the small blind with a real hand. He has pocket 9s. He already lost 2 or 3 buy-ins this session. He sees an opportunity to get some of it back, and he takes it by 4-bet shoving as a squeeze for about 4,000 total. That's going to clear some people out, including the person that I was most worried about, Andrew Nemi. There's tons of dead money in the middle. I'm facing a jam from a player who could be tilting after taking a couple of brutal beats early on. I might be up against a worse ace or small to medium pocket pair. As long as I'm not up against pocket aces, I'll have a decent chance at winning. I may be ahead or flipping. With all the extra money from the blinds, the straddle, the initial pre-flop raise, Andrew's 3-bet, and my 3-bet call, plus the $800 swing in the right direction for me if I don't lose the stand-up game, I'm able to justify sticking around.
Back to Brad. Ace-Jack makes the call.
Oh, we're going to have a flip for it all right here. One time for the stream, Rick. Can Brad survive?
I'm relieved to see that we're just about flipping. It's nearly a $9,000 pot. If I lose, I'd be about even on the session. If Ace-Jack wins, we'll be up almost 5 figures. The flop comes Jack 6-4 rainbow. We make a pair when we need to the most. Stash is running awful today. He needs a miracle. The turn is the Queen of Spades. It's no help for him. The river is another 4. We win a massive pot to keep the heater going, at least for now. Dr. J triple straddles to 200 the very next hand after that. It folds to us in the $50 straddle, so we look down at Ace-Queen offsuit. With game flow in mind, and the fact that only 2 remaining players in the hand on my left have way smaller stacks of around 30 big blinds, I rip it in. Stash folds as Jack-9 offsuit, Dr. J looks down at Ace-5, maybe he can justify calling after seeing earlier that I 3-bet 5s to 5,000. I'm clearly willing to put in piles of chips with hands that aren't premiums. Nope, he folds. That just about wraps up the session. We get another 5-figure win to add to by far the best period of poker in my life.
Cumulative winnings. Jay went up 11,400. Brad Owen, 10,850. Downhill 2,657. Cinnabon and Scotland, both winners. Andrew Nemi lost $4,000. There's your V-Pips. And Skull Mike, another great one. Another great day at the Lodge Mahal.